And at this time, Ole Miss head baseball coach Mike Bianco joins us on the Farm Bureau guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. Ole Miss hosting Arkansas over the weekend. They lose game one of the doubleheader on Friday, bounce back and win game two, and then come up short in game three. And, Mike, we always appreciate your time. When you look back at this weekend, is this one where it feels like maybe one got away and there really was an opportunity to win a series there and just couldn't quite get over the hump?
I think that's, kind of been the story the last 3 weeks. I think we've let games get away that, either could have won, should have won, and, I think it's just disappointing. We're just not playing well enough. And, I said it in the post game. You saw, I think, all 3 games I think you did on the air. Just not enough. Just not enough pitches, just not enough defense, just not enough good at-bats, to win the baseball games. And, a team that, I think is very similar to us, where they've had some injuries on the mound, probably not as dominant as they want to be, but they did more to win the games this weekend than we did.
You've talked about needing to play better, and I wonder if it's almost akin to like you got a dam and there's a leak in it, and you're able to plug a hole and then you see one in another place, because I thought this weekend starting pitching, especially in games 2 and 3 with Xavier Rivas and JT Quinn was pretty good. What did you think about those guys?
No, but it's not just one phase. Everybody, and I know probably certainly the fan base. You want to point to one thing: hey, we don't pitch it well enough, or we don't hit it well enough, we don't field it well enough. But we don't do any of that well enough right now in conference play. We've done it before. We've done it in spurts, but the starting pitching, this weekend, especially with Quinn and Rivas, was good enough to win. But good enough if you score and defend, and we just didn't do that. A prime example is, and again, this is not blaming anybody but when you say, hey, play well enough, we had a 3-1 lead in game 3 in the 5th inning, and Quinn's pitching well. He was 0-2, and Tecali, who's a really good fastball hitter, has got Kemp-like power, and we decided to go all breaking ball, but he can't deliver one of the pitches, so he walks the leadoff guy. Then Wild pitches him to second base, and then an error, by Gonzalez in the shortstop area that gets him to third base with 1 out, and then we don't block a ball behind the plate. And so, there's enough blame to go around, and especially with the blame on the coaches as well. So we're just not playing well enough.
This is probably a question where you were like, Richard, if I knew the answer to that, I'd immediately plug it. So what do you do when you're trying to figure that out and you're like, okay, we need to play better, but we've got to play better in every area? How do you go about doing that when you're playing in a league where there are no weeks off, there are no gimmies, there are no layups for you?
No, you're exactly right. The one saving grace is, we think we're good enough, right? We've shown in the past, that what I just said to you, Quinn's a freshman, he has to learn how to deliver the pitch, but Gonzalez is, an All-American shortstop. I think Harris is an All-American catcher. We're going to miss balls. We're going to, make mistakes, but we need to not do it all in the same inning where you give up runs. And like I said, the saving grace is that we've done it before. We just need to do it more consistently, and we need to do it, when it means the most. And you're right. You get no gimmies in this league, and so if you don't play well, you lose in this league, and that's what's happened to us. At the beginning of the first 4 weeks here.
One of the things during the offseason, people so many times, you've used the number, everybody else has as well, 7-14, talking about that team from a season ago. I feel like people talked about the production that was gone from last year's team. I'm wondering if there was enough conversation about the leadership when you talk about Dunhurst and Bench and Tim Elko and other guys that were so a part of that. Do you have that? Do you feel like in your locker room somebody that can kind of grab the team by the scruff of the neck, if you will, and say, no, this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it that way starting right now?
It's a great question, but I always talk about if you're going to judge leadership, you need to judge it at the end of the year. It's hard to, I think it doesn't make any sense to talk about the leadership. I don't know if you would have talked about the leadership when we're 7-14, you would have said, "Oh man, we have great leadership," right? But once you get through that, and you know how you got through it because of those guys. So I understand what you're saying, and I don't think that part was forgotten by us. We think that was the reason that we got through it. You can talk about Dylan Delusion, you can talk about Hunter Elliott and Tim Elko, but at the end of the day, we got through it because of the guys that you mentioned and others, that continue to show up every single day. And so there's a lot of games left, and so we'll see. We'll see how good a leadership we have. We'll see how tough this team is, and ultimately we'll see how good this team is. We're in a spot now that it's been really tough the last few weeks, but we feel we're a better team than this, and I think we believe that we can play better than this, but ultimately you have to do it.
I guess one thing where, in terms of good news, you got a lot of baseball left, right? 6 weekends left in the SEC, and a huge one this coming weekend where you go to Starkville, rivalry series, going to be huge crowds at the ballpark. Looks like the weather finally is going to be really, really good. Do you look at that as an opportunity? Do you feel like your players are looking at that as an opportunity of, hey, this is where it can start?
I think you always look at it as an opportunity. Once you do that, if you don't do that, I think you're done. And, I think our guys are looking, first, and where they should be is, tomorrow night here against Memphis and then Alcorn. And, but we know that, it's going to be a big weekend. We know it's going to be a big weekend in Starkville against our arch rivals. And, they're all big weekends. But when you're playing, state, obviously, it means more.
What are you going to do on the mound tomorrow night?
We're going to go with Grayson Saunier. And so Grayson pitched against them last week. They're going with the same stars they threw, last week, but they threw, maybe 8 or 9 pitchers at us. We will, hopefully we won't do that. But we're going to let Grayson go a little bit and hopefully, score some runs and, get to pitch some other guys.
And then last thing for you, Mike, you gave kind of an injury update or a progress update on Hunter Elliott after the last game over the weekend. For our listeners that may not have heard that or read that, can you kind of bring people up to date on where he is in terms of getting back?
Yeah, sure. He's just threw another bullpen today, so he's thrown 3 bullpens, 60 feet 6 inches off the mound, full speed. Obviously, a lot of throwing and ramp up time before that. But he threw 2 bullpens last week. He threw a bullpen today on the game mound. Felt great, looked great. Velocity, everything, seems to be, where it normally is, and he's feeling good. So he'll get another bullpen, later this week, he'll throw to live hitters later this week. He'll throw a bullpen next week, and hopefully, if all goes well, and again, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, I think he'll pitch in some capacity, that LSU weekend.
When you've got a guy that's been a starter, do you feel like you need to keep him in that role even after he's coming back from a long time, or can you start him out as a reliever and then work his way back to being a starter?
It's a great question, and I think just depends on who it is. More than likely we'll probably start him, but that not get our fans overly excited. There's only so many pitches, and I don't know what that number will be at this point. But I think we probably feel more comfortable starting him than relieving him.
Thanks so much for your time.
All right, Richard.